I didn't even click the right screen. Look at that. We're doing great. Welcome to the new episode of The Lonely Road. We're here on your journey to heal and become a better human. Many of you may know me from my other job or my other podcast, or even both of us from TikTok. But, things are changing. The world's changing. And I guess TikTok might be going away or getting bought by other people. It'll be an interesting time to see what goes on now for like the next couple of weeks. This is going to be a very different show than my show. It's going to be a very different thing than what KJ used to produce. But this is going to be a deep dive on grief and mental health and trying to help you figure out how to handle these situations better because so many people genuinely just don't understand. Sometimes I don't understand. Sometimes I fail at it. But there's sometimes that for some reason I'm an idiot savant and it's like, Zach, you're making sense.
These aren't things that are taught. These soft skills aren't things that are taught to us in life. And so it's interesting to be on the road of trying to figure these things out so that we can pass them on to the younger ones in our lives. It's important.
Yeah, it's weird when you get faced with something that you don't necessarily expect to hit you in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
Like
Like that.
out of all the topics that we have like 150 topics written. And this is a topic that I was like, this is kind of this is not my jam. I don't know about everybody else, but like it doesn't affect me in the way that it affects everybody else for some reason. And it might be autism, it might be the ADHD, it might just be a combination of both of that, but I'm not necessarily sure. KJ, how have you been?
I've been doing okay. I've been doing all right. The last week has been especially tiring. But other than that, I'm just trying to find new ways to leap past this phase that I'm in of depleting hormones and try to figure out the key to getting more energy. That's the quest that I'm on right now, physically.
I don't know. It's weird. Like, and for so long, I thought like all medication or all medical intervention is a bad thing. Like, don't do it. Why would you do it? Now with watching my bosses, my one boss is on like the highest levels of TRT he possibly can be, and I'm like, I can't say that I wouldn't just do it. If I had the money, I probably would. And I'm at 30. I could imagine at 40, 45, when you're starting to slow down and you're tired, that you're like, oh, how the fuck do I fix this?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've been tossing back and forth hormone therapy, going to the doctor, getting some blood work, really finding out what the deficits are,
Yeah.
and then honing in on it that way. That just seems like the smartest way to do it. But I have to hurdle past my distrust of the medical profession and just bite the bullet and make an appointment. But I'm kind of sussing out my wife's doctor right now. So we'll see. She's got an appointment in a couple of days. So we'll see how that one goes. We'll see if his vibe passes the KJ vibe check.
I get
So,
really obnoxious with them.
yeah.
And Bree really got confused with it after the appointment after the baby and everything. She's like, okay, so you're going to go on birth control. I said, okay, why are we putting her on hormonal birth control when she's dealing with all this stuff?
Hmm.
She's like, so that way we can guarantee everything doesn't happen for a couple months. Well, okay, that makes sense. She's like, but don't stop taking folic acid and whatchamacallit, prenatals. I'm like, so you want her to continue taking hormonal birth control so that way her body still thinks she's pregnant. And then you also want her on prenatal vitamins that will spike all of her vitamins and everything else and cause her to have problems possibly with postpartum. What the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, well, there's never been a study that links those things. Oh no, there's hundreds of studies that link those two things.
Hmm.
So you're fired.
Interesting.
I hate doctors that don't like if you want me to explain myself, I'll explain myself. If you want to explain why I'm wrong, explain why I'm wrong. Just saying
Right.
that it's impossible and it's unbelievable. Don't do that.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
question
Don't
you.
don't treat me like an asshole. Like that's the one thing. Like don't treat me like I'm ignorant. I may be ignorant to some things, and that's what I'm there to discuss with you. You are the professional. You do have a degree, but that doesn't make me stupid about my own body.
Yeah, my doctor with my neck injury literally showed me that I am smarter than most doctors. And I fucking hate being able to admit that. I hate kind of being on the edge of like feeling arrogant. But as a
Well,
whole,
a lot of the
that
time, you
doc
just need to pay attention. And that's a lot of things. A lot of time, I find that with the medical profession, they have a lack of attention to the details of the
And
situation.
they don't care human wise. Like if you get a doctor that's not brand new or not like an open heart bleeding person, they are not really the most caring people in the world. They're going to try and get you right back out the door and get whatever you want done and taken care of.
Yeah, I think
And there's no
sometimes
in
a
between.
lot of times it starts out as, humanitarian to them and they want to do good. And a lot of doctors continue that throughout their lifetime. But I think in a lot of ways it does uh, just like any job or profession, it does kind of numb. They numb to the humanitarian portion of it, and the fact that they're
Yeah.
actually working on humans, and it's not just a cycle of patients, money, billing. Whatever the cycles that they get into are.
Originally, the first doctor thought that I tore my rotator cuff, I tore a capsule in my shoulder, and there might have been some nerve impingement in my neck somewhere. He was like, I don't know exactly where it is. Go there, get the MRIs, get whatever scans they want you to do. No problem. Workers' comp, they're going to sit there and fuck with it anyway. But I get transferred to this Indian doctor. And it seemed almost like he didn't understand what I was telling him, or he didn't believe in what actually was wrong with me. Like, I don't know why thoracic outlet syndrome is such a big, crazy, hardline thing of like, this is impossible. This isn't a thing. When there's medical documentation that it is. He's like, I want a full body scan of what possibly could be wrong with you. Do you think workers' comp's going to approve that? They're going to look at you and laugh at you.
Right, right, right.
They're like, the problem is here, not on his big toe that was stepped on after surgery. I don't think that those problems line up. It's just like, no, dude, no. I ended up having to force my way out of that doctor into a vascular surgeon in order to get my neck fixed.
Yeah. It's crazy the level of, I mean, it's not crazy that you have to be a advocate for yourself, but it's crazy the level of self advocacy that you have to have these days. You have to watch your own six. You have to have your own back constantly,
It's one of the
constantly now.
biggest thing I thank my mom for. And I was talking about this on our NTS too. I was like, my medical knowledge, it's very hard to figure out exactly if I am average, if I'm above average, or there's something weird here because it like clicks and makes sense and it's logical. But there are some days where I'm just like, okay, this is what's wrong. And there's no way to fix it. So I'm just going to sit here and deal with it. But I have the answer of what's wrong. How many people just fucking sit here and like, oh, I have a headache today. I'm going to take Tylenol and Motrin and hope that it fucking works. And I don't know, man. It's just weird.
Yeah, no, it gets really weird, and then you get into the whole problem of the insurance and finding somebody that's participating with insurance, and I mean therein lies a whole nother layer of issues that you have to deal with the healthcare industry. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for a lot of people. I mean, thinking about the the current events of the United Healthcare CEO.
Yeah.
Just the
Well,
different polarizing opinions about.
I
Uh,
saw that shit firsthand.
yeah,
And it's on such a micro scale. But like, I remember when my workers' case just started and they had this nurse that would call me 3 times a week. And if I missed a call, I was not getting paid next week until I got a lawyer. But they lie to you at first when they first pick up the phone. Hey, I'm a nurse trying to help you figure out what exactly is wrong with you. Let me help you so that way you're okay. And it's like, okay, so I can tell you everything. No, if I tell you anything, I get fucked because you don't work for me. And it was such a surreal thing to like just kind of figure out and feel. And I felt that today too. It's like, okay, and I was saying it literally just the other day. It's like it's a weird surrealization to feel like not everyone else is out to help you.
yeah,
It's not just you.
yeah.
It is just you.
Not everybody's
Every
for
single
you.
person has those feelings and unique individual things, and it's just weird.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely weird to the level in which people take in these all these little pieces that that equal up the whole. And a lot of times things are because, like me and my particular aversion to going to doctors, most of it is because of my my medication issues and being on it for so long and going to doctors faithfully and having none of them question it and figure out what to do next to get me off it. Because at the beginning I was told it was a maintain, and seeing over
And
and over again the travesties that happen to people.
and we saw that the other day in our group chat. Like they were like my mom is a nurse. She knows medication. She was very close to being able to get her associates for psychology and stuff like that. She was working towards becoming a psychologist and everything else. And she's like, Zach, that's not what that medication's used for. I said, Mom, that's legitimately what Google says the medication is used for. SSRIs allow the fucking serotonin not to get dispersed back into your nerves. So your brain thinks that there's more serotonin in your brain. It will chemically change you. It is very hard to go back. And she's like, I was not told that. I was like, yes, because they lied. They
It's
lied
really,
to everyone.
yeah, it's really interesting. My distrust comes a lot from, the times, the before times, I have to say, when we had the freedom to make medical decisions. And then all of a sudden in 2020, there wasn't freedom to make the medical decisions anymore. And we were, some will say not, but coerced into either, getting a certain vaccination that didn't really vaccinate, or, you know, losing your job. And in my case, it was
Yeah.
the best position I'd ever have in my life.
My
It didn't,
ex-wife, she
yeah.
was forced to get the vaccine and she developed fucking seizures from it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's interesting the uptick, from you look at all the side effects of that vax, and the uptick in all of those things, and the upticks in deaths of all of those side effects. Yet they'll say that the only, COVID vaccination deaths are less than peanut allergies. But when you add
Peanut
up,
allergies are still a fuck ton, and they just don't want you to look at it.
well, yeah, in relative to the situation, absolutely. But when you add in what was actually labeled a COVID vaccination death as cause, and the cause of death being one of the side effects of the COVID vaccination, you add those together, and have it relative to being given that vaccination, and it increases exponentially. And it just increases the distrust of the system. Um,
Which led to a very interesting conversation me and you had actually.
yeah.
Was like, is there a moral question of the killing that Luigi Mangione did?
Mhm.
At some point, is that considered a moral thing to do?
Well, I mean, if you
And
if
at
you
minimum, it's gray.
it can be, it can be to some people. It can be very black and white to others. You can find the gray area in, the greater good, and what he may have not convicted of, may have done, to deserve getting shot directly in the back by a coward. But at the same time, if you believe in that morality, which kind of makes its way into religion, then you have to be led on a path of, is it your job as a human to
To
do that,
judge.
or to judge about it?
And that was the hardest thing for me is like, I'm willing to understand that there might be positives or negatives to this specific outcome. It might negatively impact everything, and nobody's really grasping that.
Sure.
But the big thing to me is there's a chance that this just ends up like another OJ trial. It just ends up in the same exact cycle that OJ did, where he cannot be charged because there's not a jury that will convict and say that he did 100% the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing too. I'm a big law nerd, so I will be following this trial, and I'll be following all the pre-trial stuff as well. So it will be interesting to find out what happens with it. I do believe that um, there was a lot of polarization. The trial by internet, trial by public fire. And I felt a lot of people felt that it may have been retribution for things that this CEO may or may not have done, and even above that may. Be retribution for healthcare companies as a whole. Um, and then there's another whole school of thought that goes to, whoa, 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 yeah, it may have happened and he may be guilty of things, or the company may have done things and may be guilty of things, or denying claims erroneously, or all of that notwithstanding. But does that warrant this man taking a gun and shooting him in the back of the head? Like,
And
just
that's
outright in public, plain daylight.
and that's so hard. And I'm just gonna throw this idea out there. Didn't even talk to you about it first, but maybe it might be a smart idea, depending on which days you have off and what days were available. Maybe live stream. We may live react to the Luigi Mangione trial if we have free time. Um, but I don't even think that it's like a situation of like somebody's good, somebody's bad. I think everybody's sort of the asshole here. And I don't know if you're on Reddit a lot, but that's what
One of my
am
favorite.
I the asshole is
I
like
love it.
everyone's the asshole here. You don't kill people because killing people is bad. But at the same time, a CEO that did not sign off on numerous people getting health care also technically murdered people. And
Bad.
this
Yeah. Mhm.
this
But to
might this might cause a change within those confines of the availability of them actually being held accountable for those things.
It made a change directly. I remember at the time, uh, there was another insurance company, Anthem, that was going to change a policy with anesthesia. And I think it was more administrative, having to, checking the doctors and making sure that they weren't over administering the anesthesia, that kind of thing. But it
They wanted
looked
to Yeah, they wanted to limit how many hours you were allowed to be under anesthesia, and after that point, they were no longer allowed to bill the insurance company, it was going to be billed to you directly.
that so it was an interesting turn of events, because right after the
The
murder of
next
the
day,
CEO, yeah, right after that they reversed course and decided not to make that policy change. So it was very interesting, how it seemed to, or appeared to have, directly made an impact. Some could say.
and as a whole, like, celebrity death or, like, public figure death, it is hard to fully grasp.
It's a whole new layer.
Like, the one that I saw get affected and affect everybody so negatively was Michael Jackson. Like, it's
Mhm.
the first big one that kind of, like, stuck out to me, and I don't know why. Probably because of all the jokes and everything that happened around it, how questionable it was. Like, I was a little bit too young for Tupac, I was a little bit too young for Biggie, but, like,
Not
Michael
me.
Jackson was around that level where it was just in your face. Like, they
Yeah,
released his music afterwards and everything else, and it's
yeah.
just like, "Okay, I'm not sad. Why is everybody else sad?"
Yeah, it's in your face. And I mean, I think that's one of the main differences. Like, you and I, we are very alike in a lot of ways and entwined in a lot of ways, but we're very polar opposites in a lot of ways too. And one of the ways in which we appear to be polar opposites in a lot of ways is the way we take things in. And you take things in more of a linear fashion, whereas I take things in more of a feel, raw emotion fashion. And so I think that it all depends on, how you take in the world. And I think that a lot of that grieving that public does for, like, Michael Jackson's and the Biggies and the Tupacs, which I remember very well because that was right after I graduated high school and things like that. Like
But
they
like
do.
the timeline for those two, they were bigger and growing during the time that you were graduating, and
Oh
then it
yeah,
happens at the peak of their career.
huge.
To me, that's where this gets confusing and weird to me. Like Eminem hasn't passed. Hopefully he doesn't. Like that will genuinely be a sad day for me. I will feel negative. But like Michael Jackson wasn't at his peak of his career in 2006, 7, whenever that was. But I remember like people I was going to school with, 13, 14, 15-year olds, talking about how negative of a problem it was that he passed. And it's just like, yes, you might have heard 1, 2 songs or been a part of like enjoying his music, but you were not a part of the wave that was Michael Jackson.
Right.
Your generation absolutely might be impacted by that. But why? Like, if Eminem passed today, I wouldn't expect my kids to be sad. Like, they might see me sad and be like, "Oh, that sucks, dad. I'm sorry." Or like, "I like his music too, dad. I'm sorry." But, like, at the same time, I don't expect them to be, like, bawling their eyes out, and it
Yeah.
seems like that's almost like what everybody expected everybody to be.
Yeah, it's just that it feels like almost, you know how things are set up by the media. And I feel like the same thing happens when celebrities pass, like especially in music, or a Matthew Perry type situation where they just set up their music or their shows over and over and over, and they just they play out,
They
you
impact
know, of
culture.
course. Yeah, they're trying to memorialize a person, but I think that there's a piece of that that it may add to or exacerbate, you know, the public grief about the situation. And as you know, conversely, I think that with the learning that, you know, the education that I've had around grief and getting through a grief cycle is also the camaraderie of coming together. So it
Mhm.
can be both. Two things can be true at the same
Absolutely.
time.
Like, I don't not expect, every single trailer park and every single white, inner city, if Eminem passed right now, that there wouldn't be fucking candlelight vigils in every single fucking city center, because I do.
No, you're gonna see it. You know, I mean, and I just want to stop and back up right now because I know that when we're in the middle of things, the language that we use sometimes isn't noticed. But you said, "I hope he doesn't," and Zach, he's gonna die. He's gonna die
Oh,
at some
absolutely.
point, so we need to
I
take.
didn't mean it that way. I'm saying, like, right at this second. It's not
No,
gonna
I know.
happen right now.
No, 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 not right now. But you know, hopefully there's none of that. But I think that at the at that level of icon, in rap culture and being a white man in rap culture, which is a predominantly black
And
urban
you're gonna have
experience.
a bigger impact than everything else. But
Absolutely.
honestly, I don't I cannot understand, and this might be, my logic-based thinking here. I don't understand how that is going to be different from Michael Jackson and why Michael Jackson was mourned by billions of people when it was even people that were not his demographic mourning him. Like, there's gonna be a small percentage of that demographic that's not his, that's gonna mourn him. But why is everybody? Why are flags at half mast? Why is there such a drastic change in culture where it's like everybody's sad? It's like, okay, yes, one person died, guys. We got to keep going. If we freeze and stop right now because one person passed, we're giving up everything.
Inevitably, we do. Society does end up marching onward. But I think that in the case of if we want to put a Michael Jackson up against, you know, our personally, me and you,
Yeah.
our man, Eminem, is that I think that for Michael Jackson, yes, it did affect me. I was growing up. I grew up with Michael Jackson music. I think Michael Jackson music is more widespread,
Yeah. I don't think
wide
he
and
had
rather than deep. Uh,
Eminem is weird. He's like a culture defining person, but if you're not a part of that culture, you don't fucking care at all for some reason.
you miss everything but the stuff that's on radio, top 40,
Yep.
and so you don't get the complete package of Marshall Mathers that me and you have
Oh,
been studying from Jump and onto every single album that he's had. And yeah, it's deep, and we get into his catalog like that. But at the main of it, Michael Jackson had so many top 40 hits, and people
absolutely.
listen to top 40. So that I feel like overall, that's why most of the world over were mourning when when he passed. It's weird. It's really weird.
It's really weird when you compare it to somebody like a president. And we've seen quite a few of them pass in the most recent years, and we're probably going to see a few pass in the next couple of years. But like we have a lot of situations here where these people are supposed to be the most powerful and most demanding people of eyes in the entire world. But yet, for some reason, some of them just disappear when they could be the most beautiful. Like, honestly, Jimmy Carter was not a good president,
No,
but he was a beautiful fucking person. And it's just like, okay, it would seem like it went by silently almost.
he
Like,
did.
was there post? Yeah, but it's not that doesn't make sense.
Who knew that Jimmy Carter was a good person? I mean, I'd never heard any of that. I heard how shitty of a
Did you
president he was, but I've never heard of his person.
as soon as he was done with being president, he started doing Habitat for Humanity and funding Habitat for Humanity almost on a yearly thing. Even when he wasn't able to walk, he was at Habitat for Humanity with a fucking bruise covering his eye and a eye patch and hoping that he could hold it together enough to bang in together a nail into a window. And it's just like, obviously, dude, the dude cares about people at minimum. Why? Like, honestly. And this is like a weird conversation about celebrity and death and everything else. But like the idols that we look at or the idols that we portray into being these big, huge, amazing people to some people's eyes or a mass's eyes is really weird to me.
Yeah, it's become extremely strange to me. The more I get to know and learn about celebrity in general, and the how they're treated, and going into it just it's amazing to me, absolutely amazing to me, how people idolize what in essence is a character, because you
Yeah.
don't know these people from Adam, and we're
No,
finding that out with the Diddy's and the Jay-Z's, allegedly.
that's okay. The entire town burnt down. All of them are safe now.
Well, I mean, if you want to
Time
just
wise, it seems a little
the feds should
conspiratorial, but
have the tapes. I mean, they're arguing in court about these 9 tapes, and these tapes should not still be in Diddy's house. So they should be with the feds somewhere on safe deposit box, and
I fucking
they
hope so.
I do too, because a lot of people have been saying, well, okay, there's fire, there goes evidence, and I'm saying, well, if the houses were raided in Miami, which most of the stuff was taken, and even if the houses were raided in LA, they had to have been taken to a centralized FBI location, I would think, or one would think, how the FBI is supposed to work, audit, checks and balances, those type of things.
And a lot of that shit taught me to, question my kids' choices and who they idolize.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't even like that they idolize me. Like, don't idolize me. Like, I love you guys to death. I'll be your superhero, whatever you need me to be. But don't think I'm an idol. I am just a person. I'm gonna fuck up millions of times in between today and tomorrow. And if that doesn't change things, then go ahead. Understand I'm a flawed person though.
Oh yeah.
But it's like don't idolize anybody.
My mom was my hero, but understand that she was a human, very flawed, and I understand that. It is what it is. I mean, your kids are going to look at you the way they're going to look at you. You're not going to be able to change that. Just
Oh,
making sure
absolutely.
that they know that you are a flawed human, and they
But
understand that. They will.
it's such a surreal thing. Like And I don't know if this is just like single mother syndrome or what, but it's like you learn so much of like, don't question mama. Mama's always right. The first thing you do is you thank mama as soon as you make it. And it's just like, that's not always the answer. It's like if you just idolize somebody and put somebody up on a pedestal like that, whether that's a celebrity, a family member, like that person, if you meet them or they're a part of your life and they're not perfect and you realize it, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, it's very interesting to watch. When something happens with a celebrity, how the general public just flocks. And I heed warning that these people are human, and what's done in the dark will come to light. And it's the house of cards is falling as we speak, with things that are happening. And just I mean, it is interesting. Um, it's interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch it all happen. And these fires, it brings up a whole nother. You talk about layers of grief. We've touched on about 10 layers of grief already in this conversation, but the fire alone, you have 700 layers of grief there alone. I mean, on one
Mhm.
end of the spectrum, you have all these rich people that have lost their houses. Oh, great. Well, I mean, fire insurance was canceled for everybody. Well, they can afford it, but these people in LA that all they have was an apartment and they live in paycheck to paycheck to get through in that apartment, those people live there too. A lot of them
Yep.
live there too. They get lost in the Palisades or Malibu. I mean, I get it. These people have a lot of heirlooms, and I know that they can rebuild, but there's a lot of people that cannot.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad.
I remember probably like 8 to 10 years ago when we were living in the gated community and my mom's friend's house burnt down right after we bought Cinna and their
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that.
And for a while in that situation, they looked at her and was like, "We're not paying anything. This is not our problem. This is not our thing." Like, and it's just like they would tell them that they weren't allowed in their own house. That, yeah, you paid for it, you own it, but you're not allowed here. And it's just like, okay, you didn't buy it from me.
That's nuts, yeah, because that seems to be going on over in California. It happened in Lahaina too, where people can't go back and see their property, or there's major restrictions on them being able to do that, and that just it's devastating. It's devastating to people, especially people who have worked so hard or spent so much of their talent and money on these things. And I guess to a lot of people, to some of the people out there, that's what they have. That's what they spent it on. That's what matters to them. That's what hits them in the gut is the money. Others, what hits them in the gut is how hard they worked for this house that they may not have been able to get without their father-in-law's cosign. And they're working paycheck to paycheck to make the mortgage payments. And they may have been 10 years away from paying off that house and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's freaking horrible. I can't even imagine. I mean, I imagine every day. It's all over the news. It's flattened. It's a wasteland. It's like a damn war zone out there. It's crazy town.
It's a surreal feeling. And it's really hard to empathize because I'm not there, but I can compare it to things that I felt. And it's just like, okay, so I knew when somebody walked out that door, essentially, I'm flipping the bird to $100,000. And it's just like, I don't know if life's ever going to be okay again. And I have to try and figure out and put these pieces back together. I could only imagine if, you're walking away from 250, $350,000, every single memory of every single picture that you've ever had in your entire life, and just being like, I don't know if I can be home alone again. Like, and obviously he wasn't a part of it, but at the same time, it's like, he's not fucking 9 years old anymore. Like, regardless of if they're a celebrity, regardless of if they have $1 million house, at the same time, they're not the same person they were when they bought that house, when they made that
No,
money.
no. And it has its own meaning, to them, to everybody. Everybody's got touches their own meaning to everything. I know that It's really tough. It's really hard. Especially when you have, you everything's in the public eye, and so the public opinion, and so you have the things that you see on the mainstream news, and then you see things on your alternative outlets. I gear more towards the alternative outlets since, I'd have to say, since the George Floyd riots, because the mainstream media, that's when I really woke up to the mainstream media telling you one thing was happening. And then you're looking at these people that are streaming on YouTube, and they're in Portland or they're in Minneapolis, and a completely different thing is happening. And it
It
was just
it's not
eye
even right
opening.
after that happened, it was when his, autopsy came out. His autopsy coming out was the most disgusting thing to me. Not because it shouldn't have been released, because it absolutely should have been, but the fact that they still burnt cities to the ground after they proved that he was on, drugs.
Yeah. They proved so many
The the
things.
video was released, and he was having a panic attack and everything else.
It was still allowed to
Was the
happen.
police officer in the right? Absolutely
No,
not.
no,
I don't think anybody should say that he's in the right,
no,
but
you
did he
can't.
intentionally kill somebody? I don't
I
think he
don't,
was malicious. I think
I
he
don't,
was ignorant.
I think a lot of that was ignorance, and I think that it was exacerbated, and then, you know, just catapulted forward, and it led the way for a massive collection of donations from the BLM organization, which turned out to be a huge financial scam. And just to come for full circle on that idea, guess whose mansions got burnt
And they're
to the
still
ground?
banking the money. That's the hard part. Because, now that their house is burnt down, there's gonna be 15 more problems the next time any little thing happens. And it's not because one life is little, because it's not. 0 people should ever die until it's your time to die. But nobody other than me should profit off of my death.
Yeah, like it was, it just seemed like, and just like everything else that I'm, noticing, because now that I'm paying attention, you have the grift of making millions and billions and millions of dollars off this man's death. And then finding out what actually was in his system, and things that actually were put on an autopsy report, and yet allowing it to continue and go forward, captivating a whole city in freaking
And
Oregon,
gaslighting everybody.
setting setting police departments on fire, leading to massive cuts in public safety budgets. And they wonder
Every city
why,
turned into a shithole.
crime has been out of sight. Now, again, this most current administration will say crime is not out of sight. Well, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. Let's see which cities are reporting crimes, because your major metropolitan cities don't have to report the crimes, and so that's why
Well,
they
not even
keep those
reported.
crime numbers down. And
You
then
have
there's
you have
revisions.
you have states like California, you have states like New York, Washington, Oregon, all of the Democrat-led states. All of them say, "Okay, guys, if you commit a crime and we're overflowed with prisoners right now, it doesn't matter what crime you commit. You may never face fucking jail time because we're gonna release you as soon as you get fucking caught."
Well, that's exactly what happened in California, and that happened in California with somebody that came over here illegally, got some kind of asylum, and then started setting fires out there with the other fires. Then he got arrested and then let go again, because they don't keep them. It's amazing, the cycle of madness that you can allow until you don't allow it. And I've, when you live partially online, you see a lot of the public opinion, the court of public opinion come into play, and a lot of the typical left leaning, or major progressive actors and people that live and breathe California are just pissed off, and they are getting in front of their cameras on their platforms with their 1,000,000, 2,000,000, 5,000,000, 10,000,000 subscribers, and they are just letting loose. And it's not, I mean, I did a video on my YouTube that I'm revamping and TikTok, and is it accountability? Is it politics or is it accountability? You want to say it's politics and
Well,
you want to cry victim because people are
a
making
lot
it
of
political. I don't think that's the case. I think they're just trying to find accountability.
healthcare and sexuality preference stuff, the left has turned that from a political talking point into your identity.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
I think
if you look at socialized healthcare, I am very fucking far right. Anybody who has a conversation with me understands I'm far right. I am completely equal in like seeing everybody equal, but I want the right to own guns. I do not want every single person able to fucking claim random shit and me all of a sudden lose everything because you want to say something because I'm a loud motherfucker online. Like go fuck yourself. Like I am very far right. But I believe in socialized medicine because at some point you have to take from the fucking people that are making billions of dollars off every single person in the country because they feel like increasing the price is the only answer. But the thing is when every single person that's saying, I need socialized medicine is 550 pounds, needs 6 shots of Ozempic a day, doesn't have diabetes, but drinks 2 liters of fucking Mountain Dew and has 3 Big Macs a day. Honestly, your optics are horrible. You don't understand what that looks like.
yeah,
You're
no,
retarded.
it's absolutely it has to be everybody's own eye opening or awakening moment. I know I have had mine. I know your mother's in the middle of hers. She's making changes that I'm astonished with.
Yeah.
But I really feel like if we took that along the lines of what you were just saying, if we took that money, the billions of dollars that these executives and CEOs of healthcare companies are making. And instead of giving them $1 billion, $2 billion, $10 billion, depending on how many claims they deny or don't deny, or how many of, whatever cost saving measures that they want to take, instead of giving it to the CEO, or rewarding them, give them a fucking salary and let them have their salary. But how about put that back into the healthcare system, i.e., the kind of socialized medicine that you're talking about? Because what's going on up in Canada isn't working. So we got to take that
No.
and we got to add to it and we got to make it
But
work and make it more timely.
we look at the 3 things that really kind of should be rights now. Because of the way the world works, not because I believe that they're innate rights from the beginning. You have healthcare, which is a questionable thing from either side. And these things should be federalized. You have healthcare, which probably should be federalized. Your public works systems should not be fucking localized or be privately owned companies. There should not be a private fucking electric company. Every fucking house should just have power available to it. It shouldn't be fucking rocket science. We're the number one world power in the world. And yet, for some reason, the third largest state in the country has the highest price per wattage in the entire country.
No, let's not talk about the delivery fees of wattage.
But that's my point is like that should be federalized.
Yeah.
It just makes sense for it to be federalized. And then you have the last thing, which might questionably be federalized here, which is access to the internet. And we've seen that pseudo availability now change so drastically in the past 10 years and the availability to this thing change so drastically. I remember when me and my ex-wife first got together, she lived in a house that barely had fucking satellite TV
Mhm.
and didn't have any internet, didn't have a computer in her house, had one TV in her parents' room. That was the only place that they could watch TV. And it's just like, this world's changed a lot since then.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Yep.
those 3 things are
No, for
life
cool.
altering
Yeah.
rights almost because we need the availability to connect with people.
No, yeah, it's the age of information. That's where you get all your information. Like I said, there's no encyclopedias anymore.
Yeah. Like at some point they have to. And all three of them make sense. They genuinely just do.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion. What do you think? Do you think we're crazy on those points? First off, hearts go out to fucking California. We hope that everything gets
Yeah.
better.
So
I don't
sorry
give a
that.
fuck about the companies. I give a fuck about the people.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
matter.
it's sad.
All politics aside, all talking about accountability aside, I think that we do that as New Yorkers, people that are removed from the situation, because that's what we can do. We feel for those people, and so we really want to kind of reason through it, because why? They can't. They are in the middle of it. They're
I
fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their property.
I really, really fear what I see happening.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I hope that all of that beachfront property doesn't get bought out by some political affiliate or some specific person that gets a huge fucking contract to do it. I hope that it's individual people still, but I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, tinfoil hat says it's another land grab, but we'll see. We'll
That's
see
my
what.
feel.
Yeah.
Guys, give your opinion down in the comments. Tell us, your crazy shit that you're dealing with so we can help you. And, we're still fucking here. We're still
It's a
going to keep
lonely
going.
road. It's a lonely road, but we can do it together.